I stand before you today to address a matter that has returned again and again to the public conversation, a matter that is both troubling and deeply significant. It concerns former President Donald Trump and his repeated evasions when asked about the Epstein files, a collection of documents and testimonies connected to one of the most notorious scandals of our time. The story of Jeffrey Epstein is not merely the story of a disgraced financier. It is a story of corruption, secrecy, and abuse of power. It is a story of how the wealthy and well-connected were able to operate in the shadows, shielded from accountability while the most vulnerable suffered. Epstein's crimes left scars on survivors that may never fully heal, and yet justice remains incomplete. Each time files are unsealed, each time new details emerge, the American people are left with more questions than answers. Among those questions is a simple one: what did those in Epstein's circle know, and when did they know it? This is where Donald Trump, like others in positions of power, has faced scrutiny. His name, like many others, has been linked in passing to Epstein through social interactions, photographs, and events from decades past. These connections in themselves may not prove guilt, but they raise legitimate questions, questions that deserve honest answers. And yet, whenever these questions are raised, Mr. Trump's response has been to dodge, deflect, or dismiss. Asked about the Epstein files, he frequently changes the subject, ridicules the question, or simply refuses to engage. He insists he barely knew Epstein, despite evidence of their interactions in social settings. He shrugs off the inquiry as though it were irrelevant. But the truth is, the American people deserve more than shrugs. They deserve clarity. They deserve transparency. They deserve honesty. Let us remember something fundamental: leadership demands accountability. Whether you are a president, a senator, or a mayor, the principle remains the same. You serve the public, and you answer to the public. Avoiding a question does not resolve it. Silence does not erase doubt. And evasion does not inspire trust. This is not about partisanship. This is not about political grudges or election strategies. This is about the basic expectation that leaders should confront uncomfortable truths rather than hide from them. When Donald Trump dodges questions about Epstein, he is not just avoiding reporters, he is avoiding the American people. Consider what this avoidance means in practice. It deepens public suspicion. It fuels conspiracy theories. It creates an atmosphere where truth becomes harder and harder to find. In a world already clouded by misinformation, evasion by those in power only worsens the crisis of trust in government. Now, some might argue that Mr. Trump has no obligation to revisit the past, no obligation to explain every detail of his interactions with a disgraced individual from years ago. But I disagree. The very gravity of the Epstein scandal demands that those connected, however loosely, speak openly. Survivors of Epstein's crimes are still fighting for justice. They are still seeking closure. Each unanswered question feels like another door slammed in their faces. They are owed more than silence. They are owed accountability. This moment is bigger than Trump. It is bigger than one man, one case, or one set of files. It is about whether America, as a nation, has the courage to confront the darker corners of power and privilege. Will we demand answers from our leaders, no matter how powerful? Will we prioritize justice for victims over the protection of reputations? Will we insist that the truth is more important than political convenience? History has shown us time and again that silence in the face of scandal protects no one but the guilty. Transparency is not a weakness, it is a strength. Accountability is not a burden, it is a duty. And truth, though sometimes painful, is the foundation on which trust is built. To Donald Trump and to every public figure connected to Epstein, the time for dodging is over. The American people will not be satisfied with evasions. Survivors will not be silenced by shrugs. Journalists will not stop asking the questions. The files, the testimonies, and the evidence will continue to surface. And history will remember not only what you did, but whether you had the courage to tell the truth. Let me be clear. This is not about vengeance. It is about justice. It is about ensuring that those who suffered are finally given the dignity of closure. It is about reaffirming the principle that no one, no matter how famous, no matter how powerful, no matter how politically influential, is above answering to the law and to the people. So today, I call on all leaders, past and present, to meet this moment with honesty. Speak the truth, confront the questions in the evasions. Because if we cannot demand transparency on something as grave as the Epstein scandal, then what hope do we have of holding power accountable in any other matter? Citizens of this nation, let us not grow wary or cynical. Let us continue to demand answers. Let us continue to stand with the survivors. Let us continue to push for the truth, even when powerful figures attempt to bury it. Because in the end, justice will not come from silence. It will come from courage, persistence, and an unshakable belief that truth still matters. My fellow Americans, in recent months, the American people have once again turned their attention to the troubling subject of the Epstein files. These documents, filled with names, testimonies, and disturbing details, are not just relics of a criminal case. They are reminders of a system that for too long allowed wealth and privilege to stand above accountability. And yet, as these files resurface, one of the nation's most visible figures, former President Donald Trump, continues to dodge, deflect, and dismiss when asked about them. Now, let me be very clear. The Epstein scandal is not a matter of partisan politics. It is not a Democratic issue or a Republican issue. It is an American issue. It is about whether justice truly applies to everyone, no matter their power or position. It is about whether the survivors of Epstein's crimes will ever hear the full truth when questions are posed to Mr. Trump about his connections, his past encounters, or his knowledge of Epstein. We see the same familiar pattern. He pivots to unrelated topics. He insists he hardly knew the man. He mocks the question itself as though the demand for transparency were somehow illegitimate. But my friends, the questions are not illegitimate. They are necessary. When leaders refuse to answer, they betray the trust of the people they once served. Transparency is not optional. It is the bedrock of democracy. The American people have a right to expect straight answers, especially when the issue at hand involves one of the darkest scandals in recent memory. What does it mean when a former president dodges questions about such a case? It means suspicion lingers. It means doubt grows. It means citizens are left to wonder if the truth is being hidden. And in an age already plagued by misinformation and conspiracy theories, evasion from leaders only makes matters worse. Let us also remember that this is not just about public perception. This is about real people. Survivors of Epstein's abuse are still waiting for accountability. Many of them have spoken bravely, recounting the horrors they endured. They deserve to see every piece of the puzzle laid bare. They deserve to see every figure with knowledge of Epstein's operations questioned openly, not shielded by silence. Each time a powerful man dismisses these questions, it feels like another betrayal of those victims. Now, let me address the argument some make in Trump's defense. They say he wasn't charged, he wasn't involved in the crimes. But that misses the point. The issue is not whether he was guilty of Epstein's actions. The issue is whether he will be honest with the American people about what he knew, who he associated with, and how far those connections extended. Leaders are not judged only by the crimes they commit, but also by the courage they show in confronting uncomfortable truths. And so far, Mr. Trump has shown none of that courage. Instead, he chooses evasion. And evasion is corrosive. It corrodes trust in institutions, it corrodes faith in leadership, and it corrodes the very principle of accountability. The more a leader avoids the truth, the less the people believe in the system designed to uphold it. This is not just about Trump. Of course, many powerful names appear in those files. Many are now trying to distance themselves, to minimize their connections, to hope that the public's attention drifts elsewhere. But the difference with Donald Trump is that he is not just a former socialite or businessman. He is a former president and possibly a future candidate for the highest office again. That makes the stakes far higher. The people have every right to demand answers before they place their trust in him once more. The Epstein case shines a harsh light on the culture of secrecy and privilege that protects the powerful while silencing the vulnerable. If we allow leaders to shrug off questions, then we send a dangerous message that accountability ends where influence begins. That is unacceptable in a democracy. So today, I say this: the dodging must end. Donald Trump, like every public figure named in these files, must face the questions directly. He must tell the truth, not only for his own reputation, but for the sake of the victims and the integrity of our justice system. Because until he does, doubt will remain, trust will erode, and justice will continue to be delayed. And to the American people, I say this as well: do not allow silence to be an answer. Do not let evasions pass unchallenged. Justice has never come easily in this country. It has always been demanded, always been fought for, always been wrestled from the hands of those who would prefer secrecy. This moment is no different. The truth must come out, not for politics, not for spectacle, but for justice, for transparency, for the survivors. Because if the most powerful among us can dodge questions about Epstein, then what does that say about the state of accountability in America? If a former president can refuse to answer, then what hope do we have of holding anyone accountable? That is why we cannot stop asking. That is why we cannot stop demanding. That is why we must not let the silence of leaders bury the voices of the victims. Donald Trump may dodge the questions today. He may laugh them off, change the subject, or point the finger elsewhere. But the truth does not disappear, the files will not vanish, and the demand for justice will not fade. So let us stand firm. Let us keep pressing forward. Let us keep asking until the answers come. Because America is stronger when the truth is told, and weaker when it is hidden. There are times in our nation's history when difficult questions demand honest answers. Today, one such moment confronts us. It concerns the late Jeffrey Epstein, his files, and the lingering shadows they cast over powerful figures, including former President Donald Trump. Let us lay out the facts as the public understands them. Jeffrey Epstein was not just another financier. He was a convicted sex offender, accused of orchestrating a network of abuse and exploitation that targeted young women and girls. His death in custody left behind more questions than answers. His files, court records, depositions, and documents that continue to emerge have revealed names of high-profile individuals who crossed paths with him. These are not allegations of guilt against everyone mentioned, but they are legitimate points of inquiry. Among those named in connection with Epstein is Donald Trump. The record shows that Trump and Epstein knew each other socially in the 1990s and early 2000s. Photographs, video clips, and testimonies confirm they were at the same events. Trump himself once described Epstein as a terrific guy, before later distancing himself. These are facts, not speculation, and they form the basis for the questions now being asked. When reporters confront Mr. Trump about these ties, his response is not clarity but evasion. He claims he barely knew Epstein. He insists the connection was insignificant. He turns the question into a joke or shifts the focus elsewhere. But each time he dodges, he deepens public suspicion. Each time he refuses to answer, he strengthens the perception that something is being hidden. Why does this matter? Because accountability matters. Because transparency matters. and because the American people deserve to know the truth from their leaders. This is not about convicting Donald Trump in the court of public opinion. This is about whether he, as a man who held the highest office in the land, will be forthright about his past associations. The presidency demands a higher standard. Even the perception of secrecy corrodes public trust. If a leader cannot give a straight answer to a simple question, what was your relationship with Epstein? Then what else might he be unwilling to answer? The Epstein scandal is not a minor episode. It is one of the most disturbing stories of elite corruption in modern history. Survivors have described unimaginable abuse. Networks of wealth and privilege enabled Epstein to continue his crimes for years. Powerful people turned a blind eye. Others looked the other way because of money, access, or influence. This is the environment in which Trump and Epstein interacted. That alone makes full disclosure a moral obligation. Let us consider the broader consequences of evasion. When leaders dodge questions, they fuel conspiracy theories, they invite speculation, they turn a dark chapter of American life into fertile ground for rumor, division, and distrust. In a country already struggling with misinformation, silence from powerful figures is dangerous. It erodes faith in institutions and creates space for lies to thrive. Trump's defenders argue that there is nothing more to say, that he was never charged, that his connection to Epstein was casual. Perhaps that is true. But if it is true, why not say it clearly? Why not address the questions directly and lay them to rest? Refusing to engage only keeps the issue alive. The avoidance becomes the story. And let us not forget, this is not just about Donald Trump. Many prominent figures appear in the Epstein files. Some have spoken openly about their connections and distanced themselves with candor. Others, like Trump, have chosen silence. But Trump's case is unique because he is not just a former businessman or celebrity. He is a former president, a figure whose decisions have shaped global history. The standard applied to him must be higher. What message do we send to survivors if we allow evasions to stand? What message do we send to future leaders if we tell them that dodging questions works better than answering them? Silence protects the powerful. It does nothing for the victims. To the American people, I say this: do not accept deflection as an answer. Do not accept laughter in place of facts. Do not let any leader of any party escape accountability when the truth is demanded, because justice is not served by secrecy, it is served by courage. And to Mr. Trump, the message is simple: the time to dodge is over. You may avoid the questions today. You may dismiss the journalist tomorrow, but history will not forget. The files will not disappear, and the survivors will not stop demanding the truth. The Epstein scandal is a wound that has not healed. For the survivors, every day without full accountability is another day of injustice. For the American people, every unanswered question is another crack in the foundation of trust. Healing requires truth. Justice requires courage. Leadership requires honesty. So let us keep pressing. Let us keep asking. Let us insist that no one, no matter how powerful, is beyond answering for their associations. Because if we fail here, if we let silence win, then we set a precedent that the powerful can always hide behind evasion. That cannot be the legacy of this nation. The truth will come. It may take time, it may face resistance, but it will come. And when it does, the record will show who stood for transparency and who chose the shadows. We are gathered here today not just to talk about politics, not just to talk about one man, but to talk about truth. A truth that has been buried under excuses, evasions, and silence for far too long. The name Jeffrey Epstein has become a stain on our nation's conscience. His crimes against young women and girls represent one of the darkest scandals in modern history. He operated a network of abuse enabled by wealth, influence, and secrecy. Survivors came forward with courage, demanding justice, but instead of answers, what have they received? Silence, cover-ups, dodge questions. And when it comes to one of the most powerful figures in American politics, Donald Trump, that silence is deafening. Every time reporters ask Trump about Epstein, what happens? He changes the subject. He shrugs, he mocks the question, he pretends it doesn't matter. But let me tell you, it does matter. It matters to the survivors. It matters to the American people. It matters to anyone who believes that justice should not be reserved for the powerless, while the powerful walk away untouched. Leadership is not about dodging hard questions. Leadership is about facing them head on. When a former president refuses to answer, it sends a dangerous message that the rich and powerful can simply laugh off accountability, that their reputations matter more than the truth, that the victims don't matter. But we know better. We will not accept that. Trump has claimed that he barely knew Epstein. He says their relationship was casual, that he cut ties long ago. Well, if that is true, then why dodge the questions? Why avoid the details? Why treat transparency as a threat instead of an obligation? The more he evades, the more it looks like there is something to hide. And this is not just about Trump. This is about every powerful name that appears in those files. This is about a system that for decades protected predators while silencing survivors. But Trump stands out because he is not just a name in a file. He is a former president of the United States. He held the highest office in the land, and now he wants the trust of the people once again. But trust is earned, and trust requires honesty. Friends, justice is not optional. Transparency is not negotiable. Accountability is not a matter of convenience. If the American people cannot demand answers from a former president about one of the most infamous scandals in modern history, then what hope do we have of holding anyone accountable? The survivors of Epstein's crimes have carried this burden for too long. They have shown courage. They have spoken their truth. And yet, the men in positions of power, men like Trump, hide behind silence and deflection. That is unacceptable. That is cowardice. And I say this with conviction: silence will not save them. Silence will not bury the truth. Silence will not protect the guilty, because we, the people, will not stop asking. We will not stop demanding. We will not stop fighting until every question is answered, until every survivor is heard, until every powerful figure connected to Epstein faces the light of truth. This is bigger than politics. This is bigger than parties. This is about justice. This is about whether America will stand with the survivors or protect the powerful. It is about whether truth still matters in a democracy. And make no mistake, truth always matters. So let us raise our voices. Let us send a clear message to Donald Trump and every leader who thinks they can dodge their way out of accountability. We are watching. We are listening. We are demanding answers. And we will not go away. Trump can dodge the questions today. He can laugh them off tomorrow. But history does not forget. The truth does not vanish. And the survivors do not stop speaking. The day will come when the truth is undeniable. And when that day comes, we will remember who stood in silence and who stood for justice. My fellow Americans, this is not just a fight about one man. This is a fight about the soul of our country. Will we live in a nation where the powerful evade responsibility? Or will we live in a nation where no one, no matter how rich, no matter how famous, no matter how politically connected, is above answering for their past? I believe in the second. I believe in a nation where justice belongs to everyone, not just the privileged few. I believe in a nation where survivors are heard, not ignored. I believe in a nation where truth is more powerful than evasion. So stand with me. Stand with the survivors. Stand with the American people who are demanding answers. Because the time for dodging is over. The time for silence is over. The time for truth is now. We are gathered here today not just to talk about politics, not just to talk about one man, but to talk about truth. A truth that has been buried under excuses, evasions, and silence for far too long. The name Jeffrey Epstein has become a stain on our nation's conscience. His crimes against young women and girls represent one of the darkest scandals in modern history. He operated a network of abuse enabled by wealth, influence, and secrecy. Survivors came forward with courage, demanding justice. But instead of answers, what have they received? Silence, cover-ups, dodge questions. And when it comes to one of the most powerful figures in American politics, Donald Trump, that silence is deafening. Every time reporters ask Trump about Epstein, what happens? He changes the subject. He shrugs. He mocks the question. He pretends it doesn't matter. But let me tell you, it does matter. It matters to the survivors. It matters to the American people. It matters to anyone who believes that justice should not be reserved for the powerless while the powerful walk away untouched. Leadership is not about dodging hard questions. Leadership is about facing them head on. When a former president refuses to answer, it sends a dangerous message that the rich and powerful can simply laugh off accountability, that their reputations matter more than the truth, that the victims don't matter. But we know better. We will not accept that. Trump has claimed that he barely knew Epstein. He says their relationship was casual, that he cut ties long ago. Well, if that is true, then why dodge the questions? Why avoid the details? Why treat transparency as a threat instead of an obligation? The more he evades, the more it looks like there is something to hide. And this is not just about Trump. This is about every powerful name that appears in those files. This is about a system that for decades protected predators while silencing survivors. But Trump stands out because he is not just a name in a file. He is a former president of the United States. He held the highest office in the land, and now he wants the trust of the people once again. But trust is earned, and trust requires honesty. Friends, justice is not optional. Transparency is not negotiable. Accountability is not a matter of convenience. If the American people cannot demand answers from a former president about one of the most infamous scandals in modern history, then what hope do we have of holding anyone accountable? The survivors of Epstein's crimes have carried this burden for too long. They have shown courage. They have spoken their truth. And yet, the men in positions of power, men like Trump, hide behind silence and deflection. That is unacceptable. That is cowardice. And I say this with conviction: silence will not save them. Silence will not bury the truth. Silence will not protect the guilty. Because we, the people, will not stop asking. We will not stop demanding. We will not stop fighting until every question is answered, until every survivor is heard, until every powerful figure connected to Epstein faces the light of truth. This is bigger than politics. This is bigger than parties. This is about justice. This is about whether America will stand with the survivors or protect the powerful. It is about whether truth still matters in a democracy. And make no mistake, truth always matters. So let us raise our voices. Let us send a clear message to Donald Trump and every leader who thinks they can dodge their way out of accountability. We are watching. We are listening. We are demanding answers. And we will not go away. Trump can dodge the questions today. He can laugh them off tomorrow. But history does not forget. The truth does not vanish. And the survivors do not stop speaking. The day will come when the truth is undeniable. And when that day comes, we will remember who stood in silence and who stood for justice. My fellow Americans, this is not just a fight about one man. This is a fight about the soul of our country. Will we live in a nation where the powerful evade responsibility? Or will we live in a nation where no one, no matter how rich, no matter how famous, no matter how politically connected, is above answering for their past? I believe in the second. I believe in a nation where justice belongs to everyone, not just the privileged few. I believe in a nation where survivors are heard, not ignored. I believe in a nation where truth is more powerful than evasion. So stand with me, stand with the survivors, stand with the American people who are demanding answers. Because the time for dodging is over. The time for silence is over. The The time for truth is now. In every democratic society, the principles of justice, accountability, and truth form the foundation upon which trust in government is built. When those principles are ignored or dismissed, public faith in leadership erodes, and the rule of law is weakened. Today, I address an issue that strikes at the very heart of those principles: former President Donald Trump's repeated evasions when questioned about the Epstein files. The matter begins with facts. Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of crimes involving sexual abuse and exploitation. His operations relied on a network of money, influence, and secrecy. Even after his conviction, his ability to move in powerful circles revealed just how often the wealthy and well-connected escaped scrutiny. His death in custody left behind files, depositions, and records that contain the names of individuals with whom he associated. These files do not prove guilt for every name listed, but they do raise questions that deserve direct and honest answers. Among the names connected, through photographs, social gatherings, and testimony, is Donald Trump. Trump himself acknowledged knowing Epstein, at one point describing him as a terrific guy, before later insisting he cut ties. These are not fabrications, they are part of the public record, and it is on this basis that questions are fairly posed to him. The problem is not that Trump knew Epstein. The problem is how he responds when asked. Time and again, when journalists inquire about Epstein, Trump avoids the subject. He shifts the conversation. He insists the questions are irrelevant. In some cases, he dismisses the inquiries altogether. This avoidance is not a legal violation, but it is a breach of accountability. Consider what accountability requires. The law does not ask citizens to speculate, it asks them to testify truthfully. In courtrooms across this country, individuals are compelled to answer questions under oath, regardless of their discomfort. The public arena should be no different when the questions concern matters of national and moral importance. For a former president, whose office demanded the highest standard of integrity, the obligation is even greater. It is not sufficient for Mr. Trump to say he barely knew Epstein. If that is true, it should be explained with clarity, consistency, and transparency. A leader who seeks the trust of the people owes them candor. By dodging the questions, Trump has allowed suspicion to flourish. He has created an impression of concealment, and in law, as in politics, appearance often matters as much as fact. We must also recognize what is at stake beyond Trump's personal reputation. Survivors of Epstein's crimes are still awaiting full justice. Many of them have spoken bravely in public, detailing the abuse they endured. For them, each evasive answer from a public figure feels like another betrayal. Each shrug from the powerful feels like another denial of their truth. When leaders fail to answer, it is not just a political calculation. It is an insult to those who suffered. This is why transparency matters. It is not about partisan rivalry. It is not about political advantage. It is about ensuring that the survivors are respected, that justice is pursued fully, and that the public can have confidence in the integrity of its leaders. The Epstein scandal is, above all, a legal and moral issue. It revealed the failure of systems meant to protect the vulnerable. It showed how influence can shield individuals from consequences. And it continues to test whether America has the will to hold its most powerful figures to account. In this context, Trump's refusal to answer is not simply a personal decision. It is part of a larger problem of evasion by those with privilege. Now, it is important to be clear. Avoidance does not equal guilt. The principle of presumption of innocence applies to all. But presumption of innocence does not erase the responsibility of leaders to provide explanations. Transparency is not about proving guilt or innocence. It is about maintaining trust. It is about showing respect for the truth and for the people who demand it. If Donald Trump wishes to regain or maintain the trust of the American people, he must do what the law itself requires in so many other contexts: answer the questions, provide the facts, confront the issue directly. Anything less undermines confidence not only in him, but in the broader principle of accountability for the powerful. To the American people, I urge vigilance. Do not allow silence to stand as a substitute for truth. Do not let any leader, regardless of title, escape the obligation to answer reasonable questions. Democracy is not sustained by blind trust, but by informed citizens who demand transparency. The Epstein case is not closed. The survivors' fight for justice continues. The files still matter, and the questions will not go away until they are addressed fully and directly. Donald Trump may choose to dodge, but history, like the law, is persistent. Records remain. Testimonies endure. The truth has a way of emerging, no matter how long it takes. Let us commit ourselves to a higher standard. Let us affirm that in America, no one is above answering to the people. Let us ensure that justice is not obstructed by silence, and that transparency is not replaced by deflection. In the courtroom of public opinion, as in the courts of law, the search for truth must prevail. And so I say, the time for evasions is over. The time for clarity is now. There are moments in our history when we are called to look beyond politics, beyond party, beyond power, and ask ourselves a deeper question: what is right? Today, as we reflect on the Epstein files and the evasions of those whose names are tied to them, including former President Donald Trump, that question echoes louder than ever. This is not merely a matter of headlines or elections. It is a matter of truth, justice, and the moral foundation of our nation. Jeffrey Epstein's crimes represent one of the darkest chapters of our time. Vulnerable young women were exploited, their voices silenced, their dignity stolen. His network thrived because too many powerful people looked the other way. Money, status, and influence shielded him from accountability. And even now, long after his death, the shadows of that scandal reach into the highest circles of power. The files that continue to emerge are not just pages in a courtroom archive. They are the voices of survivors who have been fighting to be heard. They are reminders that justice delayed is justice denied. And yet, when former President Trump is asked about his connection to Epstein, his response is not honesty but avoidance. He dodges, he dismisses, he changes the subject. My friends, silence in the face of injustice is not neutrality. It is complicity. When a leader refuses to answer questions about his ties to one of history's most notorious abusers, he is not protecting truth. He is protecting himself, and that choice carries moral weight. Leadership is not measured only in victories or policies. It is measured in courage. The courage to face the truth even when it is uncomfortable. The courage to speak plainly, even when it might cost something. And when Donald Trump dodges questions about Epstein, he shows not courage but fear, not accountability but avoidance. Let us be clear, knowing Epstein is not in itself a crime. Many people moved in his circles, some innocently, others not. The issue here is not guilt by association. The issue is responsibility. A leader owes the people transparency. A leader owes the survivors respect. A leader owes the truth, not deflection. When Trump avoids the questions, he is not just refusing reporters. He is refusing the American people. He is refusing the survivors who deserve clarity. He is refusing the moral duty that comes with the privilege of leadership. Think for a moment about the survivors. They carry wounds that may never fully heal. Each time they see powerful men laugh off questions about Epstein, those wounds are reopened. Each time they hear a leader dodge accountability, it tells them their suffering is secondary, their truth is inconvenient. That is a cruelty no survivor should ever endure. And so the moral test before us is simple. Do we stand with the powerful who evade, or with the vulnerable who endured? Do we accept silence from those in high office, or do we demand the truth, no matter how uncomfortable? History teaches us that silence is never innocent. It was silence that allowed corruption to flourish. It was silence that enabled predators to walk freely. It was silence that delayed justice for countless victims. We must not allow silence to be the legacy of this moment. To Donald Trump and to all leaders connected in any way to Epstein's dark world, the call is clear. Speak, answer, confront the truth. Not because politics demands it, but because morality does. Because your silence harms the survivors. Because your evasions erode trust in democracy. Because your legacy will not be measured only by power gained, but by truth denied. And to the American people, I say this: do not grow weary. Do not let cynicism convince you that truth no longer matters. Do not let evasions by the powerful become the standard of leadership. Our nation is strongest when we demand accountability, when we insist that justice belongs to all, and when we remember that the measure of greatness is not wealth or influence, but integrity. One day, all of us will be judged not by what we avoided, but by what we confronted, not by the power we held, but by the truth we told. Donald Trump may believe that dodging questions spares him today, but history will render its own verdict. Silence will not protect him from that judgment. The Epstein scandal is a wound on the conscience of America. It calls us to a higher standard, to stand with the broken, to demand honesty from the powerful, to insist that justice is more than a word in a courtroom. It is a moral duty, a sacred trust, a promise to the vulnerable that their pain will not be ignored. So let us choose courage. Let us demand truth. Let us reject silence, because only then can we honor the survivors, heal our nation's conscience, and leave behind a legacy of justice stronger than secrecy.